Today, live on the Garfield Show, we are going to solve the greatest debate of all time. Apples versus oranges. But before we get into apples versus oranges, we're going to get into a little bit of jazz music. 1, 2, 3, go. Okay, so in my book, this thing right here is clearly the victor, and I'm going to explain to you why. Number one, once upon a time, Adam and Eve were butt naked in a garden, and God was like, hey, you can chill right here, you can log on to Facebook, you can go to Pizza Bowlies, go to Kings Dominion, hop on a roller coaster, do whatever it is you want to do, but all you got to do is not eat from this tree. But then one day after Eve had logged off Facebook, she was clicking Eve likes heaven or something like that. All of a sudden this thing comes into her life, and it was so delicious she had no choice but to turn her back on the Lord himself. Think she could have done that if this thing had been around? I don't think so. And this thing is tasty, and it's delicious, and it makes me want to sing more jazz, and that's what I'm gonna do. Go. Apples, 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 apples. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. Which one of these is the sexier fruit? Now, I think that would depend on more maybe if you were a man or if you were a woman. Now, I can't lie, as a man, if I was on a deserted island somewhere and nobody was looking and I really wanted to satisfy myself, I could pull out a knife and think of some things to do with this. But just because I think that this is sexier than this, does that make the apple any less than the orange? No, what that means is that this thing right here is nothing but a filthy little whore. Okay, so number three, the third reason that the apple is clearly the victor. Now, I know once upon a time, I'm not sure what the guy's name is, I know it was some guy with a wig on his head or something like that, and apparently one day he was sitting there with a pad and a pen, and all of a sudden out of nowhere, one of these came down, just plopped down on his head. And I know for a fact that before this thing came along, all of a sudden people stopped thinking that one day they were just gonna magically float up in the air. Me personally, I can still float up in the air. It doesn't matter what the rest of the world says. But I know for a fact from a cousin of a cousin of a cousin of that guy's I don't know, great granddaughter, something like that, that apparently thousands of these, try to say thousands. Thousands of these things dropped down on his head, and guess what? Nothing ever happened. These things were just plopping down on his head, plopping down on his head, and every day he was just waking up just doing this, thinking one day I'm just gonna fly up in the air. So, once again, proving that this thing right here is actually better. Now, another reason that this thing is better is because we're all familiar with the term American as apple pie. And I know that sounds cliche to say or whatever, but guess what? It's not a cliche. What it means is that this thing right here has actually chosen a territory. It has beliefs. This thing believes in freedom, believes in democracy. What does this thing believe in? This thing hasn't taken any stock in anything other than Florida, which gave us Luther Campbell and the Two Live Crew, proving once again that this thing is nothing but a filthy little whore. Eat the orange, orange, eat the orange, orange. Eat the orange, orange, eat the orange, orange. Okay, so I also know for a fact that people that eat these things are a lot smarter than people who eat these things. And you know how I know that? Because the first person to eat one of these and like it, he took some time in coming up with a creative name. first person to eat one of these, he didn't put too much thought into it, did he? It's like me coming out of my mother's womb and just saying like, let's just call him Beige. Fuck this thing. So, you suck, but you're my filthy little whore, so I'm putting you on the dresser. And this thing right here is clearly the champion once and for all. So I don't want to hear any of you people like still walking around talking about, oh, you know, it's like comparing apples to oranges, because you can't compare an apple to an orange. And this thing is delicious. And it's so delicious that not only am I going to take a bite of it, I'm going to bite it and I'm going to sing the theme song to the Jeffersons while I do it. Well, the outro, not the theme song. Who cares? Ready? Go.